Good evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Today we're going to be doing the Chain Beat deck profile, a very interesting deck. If you guys would like to see this deck in action, I definitely have a playlist of 3 really good games of me playing this deck, going into a detailed synopsis. For the people that don't know, this is not Chamber. It does not work in any way like Chamber. The only reason why it's called Chain Beat is because it uses a low level monster count. These monsters typically don't leave the board, and a lot of spells and traps to help counter the opponent. We're going to be running the Black Garden version, so let's get right into it. 3 copies of Evil Swarm Thunderbird. Basically, like I said, we run such a low monster count. To be exact, in this build, I run only 8. Thunderbird being able to dodge any of my opponent's trap cards, such as Dimensional Prison, Mirror Force, Bear Effect, World of Prophecy Effect, anything like that. This card practically dodges. Really good card in this deck. It's typically never going to leave the field, so that's why we run such a low monster count, because it's always going to be there. The same thing would be going for Wind Up Rabbit. Now, Wind Up Rabbit is a little more versatile than Thunderbird, because you can activate Wind Up Rabbit at any given time. Thunderbird can only activate when a card effect is activated, so you're a little limited, but the trade-off for Thunderbird is that it's typically 1950 or 1650, which has more power over Wind Up Rabbit. But still, nevertheless, Wind Up Rabbit does basically the same job, being able to get rid of himself whenever you want to, whenever your opponent mirror forces, bottomless if you have Tinky on the field, and all that other stuff, so it basically wastes your opponent resources and still stays a monster on the board. Next, we're going to be running 2 copies of Fire Fist Bear, the only non-replenishable monster in this deck. But Bear definitely serves a different purpose. Being able to go Tinky for Bear to Tinky, Tinky for Bear, and all that other stuff, and get rid of your opponent's problematic monsters is always key in this deck. Another thing is that this deck typically has a hard matchup with Gravekeepers, and Bear really helps ease that pain by just being able to destroy that face down Gravekeeper Spy or Gravekeeper Nobleman, and then keep pushing on with your plays. Definitely not a card to ever overlook in this deck, because it is the only Black Garden target when you do have the appropriate tokens. Just a really good card. Next, for spells, we're going to be running triple copies of Black Garden. This is the thesis of the deck. All of your monsters, for the exception of Bear, when they're summoned, they will get their attack half, but when they banish, since they're not summoned again, they're just placed back, they will go back to the original attack, and Evil Swarm Thunderbird will actually go to 1950. With that being said, there's not a lot of monsters that are stronger than your monsters. For example, the strongest monster that's being played right now would be Judgment Dragon, provided that it didn't use its effect. It's stronger in any given time. Its strongest attack is 1500, while our monsters are 1950 and 1400 plus. So it's just really, really good for halving those opponent's monsters. You're typically going to win that battle. But the biggest thing I like about it is that it puts tokens on the field. Now, there's so many things you can do with those tokens, especially when you're running such a low monster count. The tokens can form some type of pseudo wall. You also have to watch out by with your Wind Up Rabbit and your Evil Swarm Thunderbird, as you don't want to use your Thunderbird's effect or your Wind Up Rabbit's effect preemptively, and then your opponent just spams you with a whole bunch of tokens, so you can't bring them back. Next, 3 copies of Fire Formation Tinky. Basically searches Fire Fist Bear and Wind Up Rabbit. That's really much it. The Tinky Bear, Tinky action is definitely in this deck. 3 copies of Polyduality. This deck, no way whatsoever special summons. Another cool thing I like to point out about Pot of Duality is that when you activate Pot of Duality and you summon, if you have to under Black Garden, you do not special summon a token to your opponent's side of the field, because Pot of Duality says you can't special summon, and it is you special summoning the token to your opponent's side of the field. Just a really nifty trick. Other than that, Pot of Duality is just a really good card for helping us search into any of our other searchers to get our important cards when needed. Next, 3 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. Mass Destruction. Nothing really else to it. We need it. 2 copies of Terraforming to get Black Garden to our hand as fast as possible, as early as possible. 2 copies of Smashing Ground. I really, really like Smashing Ground in here. Whoever's going to say, nice art, thank you, I did it myself. It's really nice art, I like it. But back to the main point, Smashing Ground, like I said, gets rid of a couple of problematic cards that this deck really has a problem with, or any monsters that your opponent summons before Black Garden. Really helps with that. 1 copy of Book of Moon. 1 copy of Dark Hole, and that's basically it for the spells. Next, we're going to be going on to the trap cards. The biggest trap card right here is Accumulated Fortune. Since 6 of our 8 monsters activate their effect in the form of a chain, we have Book of Moon, Triple Typhoon, Black Garden, which starts a chain. Accumulated Fortune can be taken advantage of. If your opponent activates 1 card, you can activate a card in response and Wind Up Rabbit You get a free +2, draw 2 cards. Typically, if you activate Accumulated Fortune 2 in one turn, you're probably going to win the game because you're just going to have so much resources to do it. It's an easy +1. It's very easy for this deck to do it, and that's why we run it. 2 copies of Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare. We really hate our opponents with effect monsters. If you guys really wanted to, I guess you could drop the Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare, and the 2 Mirror Force, which I am playing, to play 3 Fiendish Chain and 1 7 Tools of the Bandit, depending on your meta. I've been bouncing in and out between Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare, and Fiendish Chains and stuff with the deck. Both of them just really good. Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare, it stops a lot of your opponent's special summon monsters effects, such as Megalo, Judgment Dragon, Excision Knight, just all of those problematic stuff, and gets rid of the card completely. So we don't have to worry about it in the future. Next, 2 copies of Mirror Force. Like I said, just mass destruction. If you want to, take out the 2 Trap Tricks, Trap Hole, Nightmare, 2 of the Mirror Force for 3 Fiendish Chain and 1 7 Tools of the Bandit. If you guys want to play it that route. 2 copy of Needle Ceiling. Since we do have Black Garden on the field, and it tends to generate a lot of tokens, and also our monsters are practically immune to mass destruction like Torrential Tribute, Dark Hole, and stuff. Needle Ceiling plays a really good portion in this, just being able to wipe the whole field, typically not your monsters because you'll just banish them and they'll come back next turn. It really stops those spam decks, and just a really, really good card in here. Next is 2 copy of Deep Prison. Obvious. The Torrential, Bottomless, Compulse, and that's Solemn Warning. That's basically going to sum up the main board. We're going to go around an extra deck. You're typically not going to use this extra deck ever, but it's always just nice to have. 1 copy of Diamond Direwolf, 1 copy of Daigusto Emerald. Now, I've actually made Cardinal on a couple of occasions. A really quick combo that I've actually did it with is that Firefist Bear was already on the field, already had tokens with Black Garden, sent the 2 tokens to the graveyard, special summoned the other bear, went to Cardinal, put my Tankies back into the deck and a bear, and put 2 of my opponent's cards back into the deck. That really did refuel my game. It allowed me to target for my wind-up rabbits after I finished Tinky Bear action. Just really, really good. If you ever do get to summon them, it's typically going to be drastic. 1 copy of Tiger King. You never know. It's a monster that negates pesky cards like Zenmaines, which we seem to have a problem with. The Maestro, Gaga Cowboy, Abyss Dweller, Steelstorm Roach, Black Ship. Now, if you guys have noticed, I haven't been able to attain Silent Arc, Honor, or whatever, an Excision Knight yet, but they would definitely be in here. I guess you could take out any 2 cards because it really doesn't matter for us. It doesn't matter with this deck. It doesn't really need an extra deck. 1 copy of Ophion because we have 2 Evil Swarm cards in here, and making Ophion against certain decks typically means game. Number 66 Key Beetle, almost for the exact same reason. Now for 3s would be Tempo. Like I said before, Zenmaines is probably one of the worst cards that we can ever play against. Tempo is directly addresses that card. Zenmaines, because like I just said, it's annoying. Fortune Tune to recycle those wind-up rabbits that we didn't want to use for an Xyz summon anyways, and be a wall that gives us 500 life points every turn. And Mecha Equipped Engineer. That basically sums up the extra deck. Now for side deck, we're running 2 Meteons and Trident Lords. I've already taken into consideration that the opponent tends to drop a ton of monsters on us and tends to spam us really, really hard, especially when they go first in game 2. Seeing that you did win. And Meteon the Time Lord really is a hard counter for that. Also keep in mind that, like I said, your 6 monsters, your 3 Wind-Up Rabbit, and your 3 Thunderbird, they'll just be able to banish themselves when Meteon tries to put everything back to the hand. It's just really good for getting rid of those problematic cards. Next, certain decks that just can't do well against Meteon, we do have Morphing Jar number 2, Synchro Killer, Xyz Killer, all that other stuff. Put everything back to your opponent's deck, make them go through it. It's just a really, really good card. 2 Noblemen to cross out. Like I said, the biggest problem with this deck is Gravekeepers. Gravekeepers is the worst matchup this deck can ever have, and I thank you that Gravekeepers are not meta yet. But for when they do become meta, getting rid of Gravekeeper Spy, Gravekeeper's Nobleman, if they ever decide to run Gravekeeper's Guard, it's also good against Ghost Tricks. I know I'm forgetting one more deck that it's good against. What is it good against?
Raccoons.
Raccoons. Oh yeah, Raccoons, because that deck's pretty annoying. If you do see it, just side in those Noblemans and get over them and keep going. Next would be 2 Xyz Encore. Draco's Hack is a problem. Big Eye isn't that much of a problem. It's just a couple of those Exceed monsters that are just a problem that the opponent can produce. Gaio's being one as well. And Exceed Encore really does address those cards straight up. DeFi, because it does not hurt us whatsoever. If you want to, you definitely could mainboard it. I decided to sideboard it because actually I really didn't feel a need for it in my meta. Definitely take one, or take a Book of Moon or a Mystical Space Typhoon or whatever out if you need to mainboard it. And that one random copy of Twister gets there against Skill Drain. 3 Typhoons and a Twister normally takes care of the job of Skill Drain. I might bump it up to 2 if I ever decide to mainboard the DeFi, and then, you know, just go from there. Now for extra deck, or I'm sorry, for traps, we're going to run 3 copies of Vanity's Emptiness. Just stopping the opponent's special summons. Stopping the opponent's special summons typically is key. And when you're stopping our special summons, it's typically just going to be the Black Garden spam. Really good at doing that. Vanity's Emptiness typically shuts down the opponent in certain decks. That one copy of Needle Sealing, the third one, for when you do need your opponent keeps spamming and you need to stop them. And then the last card is going to be Macros Cosmos. The biggest reason why I wouldn't main deck this is because you cannot use the Tinky Bear action under Macros Cosmos. But other than that, it'd be fine in that D2 main board. You just got to be watch out for the Fire Fist Bear. This deck is extremely good, extremely versatile. It counters a lot of the meta decks within its main board already. But if you guys could tweak it around, there's a lot of tweaks that could be made. You could run triple accumulated fortune. You could drop the Black Garden and run Necro Valleys if you don't see Gravekeepers in your meta. It's just so many good techs and twists that you can run in this deck. Thank you guys for watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.